Welcome to another episode of the Better Dental Life podcast. Thrilled to have Doug Clarke on today. He's a good friend of mine. Doug Clarke is the Vice President of Business Development for Imagine Dental Partners. He's, getting close to 20 years in the dental industry. He's been Director of Business Development for 3D Infusion Dental, and he's worked for Dentsply Sirona, and now he's landed his dream job with Imagine Dental Partners. And uh, Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, definitely a dream job. That was accurate. I thought you were going to say fan favorite Doug Clarke back to the show because I think this is my third time. I don't know if
That's
anybody
right.
else has been on three times, but I just want to make sure.
This is the record. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we'll try to keep the high energy and not disappoint.
That's right. So I love having you on because you always have a pulse on what's going on in kind of the transition world as dentists are getting ready to transition to retirement, what their options are, and if they're looking at dental partner organizations like Imagine, or if they're looking at other DSOs. So you kind of know what's going on in that world, and I'd love to just talk about that for a little while. So maybe
Sounds good.
first off, what's kind of going in that consolidation world right now? What's the latest? What does it look like?
Yeah, good question. So, kind of talk about where we've been and then where we're going, right? So, I think what happened for the last couple of years is things slowed way down. So, for a number of reasons, but primarily interest rates rising, inflation rising, businesses became less profitable, but more importantly, the cost of capital went through the roof, right? So this rapid consolidation that was happening did slow down. And I think you and I talked last time about the difference between aggregators and operators. So there was maybe 1,000 dental groups out there that literally their plan was to group together practices, buy them at a 5x multiple, and then sell for a 10x, making that number up. Maybe they're buying at a
Right.
7 and
Yeah.
selling for 11, whatever the plan is. But that was, what they call financial arbitrage, buy at a lower price, sell at a higher. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the extent of their plan. It's not totally different than maybe flipping a house, right? We're going to buy a house, we're going to do some little things, going to sell it for way more money. When interest rates went through the roof and some political uncertainty settled in, some economic uncertainty settled in, the brakes got hit full stop. It's not like I said slow down a minute ago. It stopped.
Yeah.
I mean it really was pretty dramatic. So people kind of got stuck living in houses they thought they were going to flip, right? So you join a group, or if you are a group, you're buying practices that you don't plan to run and operate and really partner with. When those sales became more sparse, and when I say sparse, there were no major transactions for most of 2024. There have been two here at the tail end of this year, but almost none happened. So that was kind of the big wake up call. So I think aggregators versus operators, like we talked about last time, those that are just grouping together practices, ran into rocky waters. Folks that, like Imagine, that were really looking to grow and operate and partner long term, um, kind of flourished. So I think this last era that we just went through really exposed the aggregators. So I think we're coming out of it a little bit. Things are starting to pick back up, but I don't know that we'll ever see a re-rise of this just crazy aggregation focus. I think given that exposure that just took place in the last couple of years, you're going to see a move towards groups that are really focused on growth and operating practices.
And the aggregators, their model, like you said, is to flip.
Yep.
And so as they're grouping together, there are groups that have kind of gathered together, but then don't have a buyer and they're just kind of stuck as a group now. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, that's right. So what happens is you as a, and I think there's a lot of selling dentists or dentists that sold, their practice or a percentage of their practice, depending on the model that they sold into, the group they sold into, that were promised a flip in a time horizon and at a price point that didn't happen. So maybe both didn't happen. Maybe it didn't happen at all.
Right.
And now they're hearing that the price point that was on their proposal, the group's going to sell for a 14x, and that's going to mean another $2 million for them. Number one, the time horizon got pushed out, maybe, infinitely in some cases. There might not be an end in sight. But what's happening, even the two that transacted this year were at lower multiples than previous deals. So from like 2021, 2022, at the height of the transaction market, fast forward to 2024, they're a good 2 to 3 turns, so 2 to 3x lower
Yeah.
that they were transacting. Now, it's hard for me to say exactly what that means for the doctors because there's a lot of complexity that goes into these models and structures. But when you look at, and that, again, we don't know how much these companies were leveraging debt, what their waterfall looks like, meaning what the
Okay.
owners get, the bankers get, the managers get, and then what goes down to the doctors.
Right.
But a 2x lower multiple than what was on your proposal could and likely means you got about half of what you were expecting. So there was a delay on when they thought they were going to get it, and then when they got it, it was a lot
Yes.
lower than what they thought. And it's disappointing now because that's it. That's you're stuck with that, and you either
Yep.
retire or stick it out for another couple of years and maybe try to hang in there for another
Yeah.
term.
Hopefully. Now, so when you are talking to dentists and they're kind of looking at this environment, um, what is what are they feeling like? What are dentists looking at? What are they seeing? Are they still being promised like, hey, this is going to happen? Look what happened 5 years ago. Or has that kind of slowed down as well?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought of that. You always ask good questions, Mark. It actually, now that I think about it, it's slowed down. So yeah, I mean, when we were talking to prospects, people that came to us and were interested in Imagine, one of their friends is an Imagine partner, so they referred them to us, or they, found us through other sources, or just Googled and just came across Imagine. In 2022, for instance, there was a lot more folks that were coming to us saying, okay, I know my practice is worth this. I know I can get this multiple. And this other group is offering me XYZ. And we were kind of trying to compare and contrast our model to what they were seeing. There is a lot less of that. I think people are now coming to us. I think they've gotten more educated and maybe have been made aware based on what just happened. More people are coming to us looking for partnership, looking for growth, looking for help with management, which is what Imagine was founded for in the first place, right? We were always going to be the long-term partner that can help you at your practice. And yeah, we have seen a higher percentage of people coming our way with that in mind versus these crazy numbers. And that was the frustration we had is we knew 3 years ago that they
Like
were
this
being
can't
sold a bill
last.
of goods. Yeah, we always say anybody can have fun with spreadsheets. You can put anything on a spreadsheet, and that's what they were doing, and they were buying it. But I think a lot of people are disappointed. We've kept in touch with some of the people that went other directions versus us. I won't name names, but there's some that are, highly regretful. There's even some that have like bailed on the practice they're in, and are a couple have interviewed to be associates at our practices. So yeah, seeing a lot less now that you mention it of people with just crazy dream multiples in mind. I think there's a more realistic approach happening.
Yeah. Now, with that going on, and maybe that wasn't the only driver because there are, I mean, I think Imagine's kind of the standard of a growth partner, but there are other models that are similar. And I think, so I guess my question is, um, it looked like a few years ago that some type of consolidation was going to just take over dentistry and the solo
Yeah.
practitioners were going to be gone. But now that there's other paths, is that still kind of heading? Are we still going in that direction where, 5, 10 years down the road, we're going to see, 60, 70% of the practices are some type of consolidation?
Yeah, so I think on a high level, taking a half step back, dentists still have the same four options that they've always had, which is sell to a young dentist or an associate, kind of the traditional model.
Yeah.
Sell to another doctor, a doctor in your town, maybe, that is wants that to your practice to be their second practice, or maybe they're moving. So doctor to doctor, whether it's a young associate or a more veteran doctor, kind of those are options one and two that still exist. Three, sell to a major DSO, right? Sell to Heartland, join kind of the biggest boat there is, and it's kind of 100% buyout, and you're more thinking of that as a retirement strategy pretty quickly, or partner and join a DPO like us, a dental partnership organization. So I think those four examples still exist. Sometimes when I go a little too heavy on, hey, consolidation's happening, I get some pushback from people. Well, no, doctor to doctor transactions are still happening. Of course they are. I'm saying they're happening at a much lower click, and there's data anywhere you want to look to prove that. Um, I think we are still in a steady march towards consolidation, right? And part of the reason is the financial factors that have made it challenging for us the last couple of years. We're all feeling them: raising rising wages,
Yep.
inflation on cost of goods. All of those things are actually more amplified for independent dentists. So I think independent dentists are going to continue to feel the weight of those things, which is going to lead them and continue to lead them to the idea of partnership and the idea of growth and to get the benefits of having someone, take some of the weight off your shoulders, the economies of scale, the buying power
Right.
that we have. So we're going to continue on this path. I never guess, because since 2005 I've been hearing that in 5 years we're going to be fully consolidated. So
Right.
I don't think it's, I heard a stat the other day that Patterson Dental had one of their best years with new builds. So there are young dentists building new practices, like independent practices. Those will mature over the next 5 to 6 years and then possibly partner with us after they've
Right.
grown and gotten frustrated and stressed out with managing the practice. So that's why it's really hard to say we're at this percentage and we'll be at this percentage. Clean data in dental is hard to come by. And there are so many factors. I think I told you before too. Not we don't Imagine doesn't want every practice. We're fairly picky, right? And there are practices groups don't want. So there will always be independent practices, and there will continue to be, for now, practices being built that aren't ready to join. But with all that said, existing practices continue to join at a high rate, and consolidation is happening and starting to become a higher percentage of dentistry, just like it has in every other area of healthcare.
So, what are some big advantages, and maybe speak to Imagine specifically? I'm a partner with Imagine. I see the big advantages, but I want you to speak maybe to a dentist who's looking at retirement or a transition or just help. Like all three of those are reasons to maybe start having that
Yeah.
conversation. And the time to have that conversation is like if you want to retire 10, 15, 20 years before you do so is the time to start thinking.
Yeah.
But what are the big advantages of partnering and joining up with the group?
Yeah, good question. And I always say first, we have 35-year-old partners and we have 65-year-old partners. So I think, in those kind of three categories you gave, we've got a good chunk of people in all categories. So, on the kind of the tail end, the higher end of that scale, those are people that are looking at, okay, what does this final chapter look like for me? So they're getting a couple things. They're getting a great partner for the final chapter. They're getting enjoyment. They're being able to really enjoy this last 5 6 years of being in the chair leading the team. They're also getting a guarantee that their legacy and their team and their patients are going to be taken care of. So if you're 5 years from retirement, you're going, I built this thing. All 103 practices we've partnered with have been that doctor's baby. So it's always like
Right.
your baby's unique to you, and that's important. So it's that assurance that legacy will be taken care of by us as a good partner. They're getting a guaranteed exit strategy. They're also getting to be a part of the Imagine community into retirement. I think that's a piece that resonates with a lot of people that maybe doesn't get as much publicity as it should, which is, you've built something. A lot of people have a hard time fully letting go. And when you join Imagine, you don't have to. You can retire 5 years after partnering with Imagine, continue to be an Imagine shareholder, continue to come to Imagine events and root on Imagine. It gives you something to be a part of into retirement and a community to be a part of for life. So
Right.
long answer on the
Yeah.
last chapter. All of those things, by the way, are true for everybody else. But what I think the other two groups get, maybe in addition to that, is a much longer runway of growing their practice. So we, will get them to that next level and then the next level and the next level. Whereas independently, we see this all the time. You can stagnate and hit that plateau that maybe you stay at for 20 years. We are going to constantly help them grow, whether they've got a 10-year runway or a 15-year runway or a 20-year runway. We're going to hit heights that they never dreamed of because we can do it before. And again, as a shareholder, they're going to be on a much longer and enjoyable ride too, as an Imagine shareholder, along the way.
Yeah, incredible retirement. I mean, I would have loved to have had this opportunity 20 years ago.
Yeah, you have it now. That's the great
And
part.
I've got it now. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is really cool. So I haven't told you that you talked about that transition, that retirement, and still being a part of the Imagine community. My dream is, or my dream retirement, because I love to travel and I love what I do in dentistry, and I would love to combine the two of those. So my dream is to be an associate, like retire,
Yep.
move out of my town now, and be an associate for a year somewhere with an Imagine practice, and then associate somewhere else for a year in an Imagine practice, like bounce around a little bit and see the country. That's my dream.
Good news. Your dream matches up with my dream for you, Mark, because that's actually what we would love to have you
We can
do.
do.
Yeah, and for you, I've been working on this. You didn't tell me this, but I must have sensed it. You and I have that connection because I've been going out and getting partners in awesome areas. We partnered with a practice in Tahoe this year. Jason Flagger, shout out. We partnered with
Nice.
two practices in Destin, Florida, the Panhandle, beautiful white sand beach.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
love
thinking of
Destin.
you. These are all places you can live for a year,
Places I can go hang out. That's
practice in.
fantastic. I love that.
And we, by the way, do have partners. I'm not really joking. Actually, I was going to say I'm kind of joking. I'm really not. That actually sounds like a good plan. But we have a partner in Nashville who has a second home in Destin, Florida, and of course that is kind of on the radar of like, hey, while you're at your vacation home, get 2 days of production in at our
Get something
Destin
done. Yeah,
practice. Yeah,
I
so
love
I
that.
I love that idea.
So we've just had an election,
Yep.
and has that changed the environment at all? Has that changed kind of economic outlook for anybody?
Yeah, yes and no. So I think, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think we'd all agree we're glad it's over, right? So getting through an election is the best part of an election, whether your side wins or loses. The market, much like the dental market, the stock market, the market loves stability. So just having it settled actually has created some tailwind. With the way the election went, I believe there is a little more optimism for the economy. There's some tangible things, that you probably are familiar with the bonus depreciation, which is the Section 179, the ability to make a large purchase and get the amortization and the tax benefit all in one year instead of it spread out. Because of the way the election went, that will be extended where it was going to be kind of pulled back. So there's some like direct things like that are going to help and people are already aware of. It's one of those things where macro level, the nothing's changed, right? So nothing has mechanically nothing's changed so far, but because we have that stability, people kind of understand the geopolitical environment over the next 4 years, that has already created an uptick in almost all levels of the dental market. The manufacturers are excited. My side, the M&A, mergers and acquisition side, everybody's seeing an uptick, activities up, leads are up, pipelines are fuller. Um, so, I think there's a lot of economic optimism over the next 4 years, and I think we're getting ready to ride a pretty fun wave for 4 years. And Imagine's positioned very well to take advantage of that.
Cool. So one other thing, and we touched on it just a little bit. The young dentist who joins Imagine. You said we've got some that are 35.
Yep.
Younger guys that are looking at being partners with Imagine for a long, long time, um, and that helping them with that growth. But there's that day-to-day partnership kind of taking away some or taking over some of the management struggles or challenges. What does that look like? The
Yeah.
management part of that.
Yeah, I mean, we've always divided it into leadership versus management, and you've probably experienced this, right? So you are still, in a good way, expected to be the leader of the practice and set the tone and be kind of the cultural leader on the day to day because you're the one that's there. And there's a lot of things we've learned in our 4.5 years at Imagine. One is that our partners like us around, so we do try to have more of a hands-on presence. We're in the practices, coaching, they get to know us. But day to day, you're the one there. So you're still leading the practice. You're still making the day-to-day decisions. The management side, though, is the part where we have the immense tools and resources. So obviously, we centralize accounting, we centralize payroll, we centralize marketing. And then, one of the things we do really, really well is coach and mentor office managers. So, we have found definitively a strong office manager with business support and business coaching from us makes a night and day difference in a practice. So again, for a young guy especially, they're going to get leadership training and mentorship from Imagine and help with that side of the business. And then we're going to help develop their team and make sure we have strong office managers, strong front desk people, treatment coordinators. And that's probably, I think since you and I have talked, we've always centralized billing. That's an easy one, right?
Right.
Not a lot's changed there. I think where we've evolved is realizing just how well we can impact a practice in a very positive way for everybody involved by really empowering some of those key practice people, and that just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think I had my nephew who I've talked to about partnering before and said, "Hey,
Yeah,
when do you guys think you might be ready?" And had this conversation a week ago with him actually. And and he is having frustrations with the management of the practice and said, is that I'd love it if I could just kind of show up and, and then leave. And I said, you can to a degree. I said, there's a lot of things you give up. But I said, if you stop being a leader, if you stop leading your team and directing how you want work to go,
yeah.
then you're going to struggle. Like there's nobody that's going to be able to come in and magically take away the hands-on leadership that needs to be there.
I totally agree. That I think what I'd add though is you do have a team of experts standing behind you if needed, and if needed can be on anything big and small. So, if there is something that comes up that's like a crisis happens at the practice, and you go, gosh, how do I deal with this? You've got our people and culture team, Renee, and Leilani, that you can lean on and say, hey, this happened. Help me understand what I need to do. Am I buttoned up from a legal standpoint? Whatever it is.
Right.
We have 103 partner practices. We've had all kinds of crazy stuff happen. And
Yep.
and when those things happen, you've got a team that you can go to for support. I've had doctors call me on their way home saying, like, man, this happened and 2 years ago, this would have been really tough, but I just called Renee and she walked me through it. And Imagine's on it. They're going to handle it. And by
Right.
tomorrow, we're going to have everything worked out. And I think that's a relief to our partners.
And I've seen that. I have so I've got two practices
Yep.
and they are about 45 minutes apart
Yep.
driving. And the one practice I am in full time, the other practice I have my associate in. And that other practice, the distant practice, we just got a new office manager and training, coaching, like that's my thing. That's my specialty.
Yeah.
That's what I love
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
And I love working with teams and training teams and developing teams. But it has been so nice having the support train my office manager. I haven't been in there nearly as much as I expected I needed to.
Yeah.
I go there and have a meeting every now and then, but my office manager there is just flourishing and has incredible support because of that training you talked about, especially with office managers.
Well, that's cool. And I think, on top of that, if we've seen this where if we've got office managers that eventually outgrow that position because they flourish so much, there's roles upstream for them with Imagine. We've promoted, I think, half a dozen office managers to regionals. And that's all in collaboration with our partner. We don't just come to
Yeah.
you and go, hey, guess what?
Still your
Well, it's
office
for us
manager.
now.
Hey,
Yeah,
guess
you're
what?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we all know that they're a high flyer. They were going to leave eventually anyway. And if you weren't a Imagine partner, maybe they go work at a bigger practice down the street or something. So we're keeping them in the family and we're working on a transition plan. But it's just kind of a cool career development opportunity for those high performing team members that some of our partners
Yeah.
have.
I like that. So I want to ask you just a couple questions about you personally. This is, we talked about DSOs, DPOs, Imagine specifically,
Yep.
but for Doug, what do you love to do when you're not meeting with dentists?
I'm the most boring human alive. So I this is a problem actually. You hit on a sore spot right off the bat. I think I told you last time. I've become a
End of the podcast.
Yeah, I think I'm
It's
having a
going to get
Wi-Fi issue,
boring from
Mark.
here
I
out.
get, yeah. No, I think I told you last time. I've become a full-blown dental nerd. It took 20 years, but I'm here. Like this is kind of my hobby. I read a lot. I'm listening to other dental podcasts. Again, I got to scope out your competitors for you.
That's right.
So I'd probably work too much. That's probably part one. I don't golf. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't build birdhouses. I love college football, right? So this time of year that becomes my hobby. I also, again, I'm half joking, obviously, about the workaholic part. I have twin 12-year-olds that keep my wife and I busy, and that's our focus now. So between, really putting my heart and soul into work and then raising the family, that's my focus. Play flag football on Saturdays too with a bunch of guys that, are younger than me, and try to make myself feel young for as long as I can also.
That's perfect. Well, it feels good to be the old guy with the young guys
I'm
sometimes.
gonna turn 45 here soon, and I
Yeah.
can't wait to be the only 45-year-old out there with a bunch of 20
Or
something.
it could feel like Mike Tyson trying to box a younger guy. It could be like
That's
that too.
that is the goal, is to
It
not
might
become
feel like
that. Yeah,
it might
fighting
feel
off
like
that as long as I can.
that's good. Perfect. Well, yeah, college football is coming to an end, so there's your Saturdays are going to be a little freer. That'll be
The good
nice.
thing is in Arizona, when that happens, it's like perfect time to get outside, go hiking. In Seattle, where I'm from, it was depressing. Football season would end, and
And then it's
then
just
like
wet.
February, March, April are just depressing. You're stuck inside. Yeah, at least around here, it's outdoor time.
That's good. Yeah, you got the weather's finally good,
Yeah, yep,
which
yeah. This is why
which
we
means
live
I need to
here.
come visit. I should come do that.
Look, you know where to find us. We'll get you down to one of our events. Come to the January event.
I'll do that. That
All right.
sounds
Yeah, it'll be your return to health celebration.
good. Right. So, and I'm feeling much better. So it's time for me to get out and hike and run and catch
Perfect.
this
All right, it's a
trail. Yeah.
date.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's always a pleasure. I love getting updates. I love kind of finding out what's going on out there. And I think that's helpful for a lot of people who really want to know what does life look like transitioning, what's available out there, and because those are big decisions to make.
Yeah, I used to, I know, wrapping up, I used to really study the mega trends when I was at Sorona and try to understand, like, is it moving towards dentists doing more implants and more specialty in-house, or, what is the next big thing? And for a while now, this is kind of the big topic. When you really, again, there's whole industries dedicated to studying consolidation and groups and which one's better. So this is a great topic. I enjoy talking about it, obviously. So glad to come on anytime and give you the update.
I love it. Thanks again. We'll connect again, of course, because you're the regular guest now.
I love it. We'll get on a regular schedule. I'll try to always bring a new anecdote next time. We'll always try to keep it interesting.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Mark.
You bet. Thank you.